What's up, Andrew? Thanks for coming on the show here and talking to me about pinball.
Absolutely. Thanks, Erica, for letting me join the show. I've been following for a little while now, so it's my pleasure to be able to join you and provide some pinball content for everyone. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Well, let's talk about what we're bringing you on here for today. We got some really fun behind the scenes pinball questions that we've kind of like been talking about. And so, yeah, I just want to get us started with like, who are you and what is your involvement with pinball?
Yeah, so again, my name is Andrew Lanners. I'm the owner of Premier Pinball and Amusement, located in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So we do a lot of work in the Minnesota and surrounding states areas, but we do some work across the country as well. So mostly buy, sell, refurbish, repair, and also transport and a little bit of rental as well. So um, that's who I am. Again, I appreciate you having me on today and really looking forward to diving into some of the questions in the pinball world. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So, like, how did you get into pinball? Like, how did you get into this business?
So kind of starts before actually I get into the pinball world, but kind of always have been like a long time entrepreneur. Ranging back probably the middle school, high school days. Nothing to do with pinball or arcade at all, but um, eventually an opportunity presented itself after I graduated college, and I was living at home with my parents. I actually started with arcade games. Ended up being a big buck hunter that you see at all the bars and restaurants. And then finally kind of worked my way into the pinball world after just receiving some advice and kind of establishing some relationships throughout the pinball and arcade world. So I remember that first pinball machine, I'll never forget, was Gottlieb Big Hurt. I bought it without knowing a whole lot about it, and then had it sold without knowing a whole lot about it, and definitely won't forget that experience. So,
Oh man, that's a good game. I haven't played Big Hurt in a while, but I've played it a handful of times at some shows.
it is a super cool game. I'm a big sports guy, big baseball guy, so it's kind of a coincidence that that was the first ever machine that I had my hands on that I actually owned. But yeah, just definitely a super cool, nostalgic game. But yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell how I got into the pinball world. Obviously, the more time you spend in the industry, the more you um, establish relationships and kind of learn about these machines. So that is, again, in a nutshell, how I first got into the pinball industry. So.
That's awesome. Oh, very cool. Well, yeah, everyone's got a different story on how they got in. So, when it comes to your job with pinball, so now you are like really in with pinball. Do you still do stuff with arcades, or are you mainly pinball now?
It's a nice mix of both pinball machines and arcade games. I like to tell everybody that I try to offer the most products and services to my customers as possible. So, some people that's pinball machines only, some people that's arcade games only. But I've learned over the years of being in the industry that it's a nice mix. So I try to my best to be an expert, with both pinball machines and arcade games. So very busy with both. But pinball machines, as you know, are they're not slowing down, and I think
Yeah.
they're only gaining popularity as we speak. So
Yeah, I think that I think with this new Pokemon release, oh man, I'm super excited for pinball. I think there's gonna be like a huge new group of people joining us playing games. You and I, we kind of discussed a little bit before this interview to kind of figure out what can we do to help provide value to the pinball community. What is your like number one thing you encounter when someone wants to buy a machine?
the number one thing that I probably get asked is probably pricing. And that's just such a subjective question from people. I mean, I work with a ton of first time pinball machine buyers. So, really just educating these folks on what dollar amount can get you what. So, everybody's going to have a different budget. I have people that will message me, email me, whatever. What can $500 get you, all the way up to my budget, is $15,000. So as we know, as you and I know, $500 won't get you much. That might get you a part on a pinball machine,
Yeah.
or a flooded pinball machine, or whatever that may be. But
Yeah.
that's not going to get you much, especially working. So that's probably the biggest question. Just trying to work with people on educating them. All right, your budget's $3,000. That's not going to get you a new inbox game, but we can definitely work to get you a solid, used, refurbished, shopped out game. So yeah, that's probably my number one question that I get and try to help people with, is just educate everyone on, what certain prices are going to get you, what features are going to be included probably in that price range as well. So
Totally. Like what kind of game you're going to get for that price, whether it's going to be a new game or an older game.
yep.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'd say you need at least $7,000 or more to buy a newer game these days, right?
Yeah, that's on average about 7 grand. Obviously, the Pokemons are going way above that for some of the LEs and things like that. But yeah, new in box, you're going to be looking at that. Anything under that, is going to be most likely used. And then obviously a $1,200 EM to a $6,000 used game is going to range quite a bit. So just educating people on what prices can get you what and what features.
What do you think actually determines the value of a game? Is it because it's new, or is it because of what era it was? Like, because I purchased the Lord of the Rings for over what a new in box pinball machine cost when I first got in, and I wasn't sure if I got a good deal originally on my Lord of the Rings. I just really know I wanted the game, and this was the one that was being around for me to purchase. So I purchased my Lord of the Rings for a little over $8,000.
Okay.
And so I guess at the time I didn't know how to determine that value, but I know they don't make it anymore, right? So I guess it's just certain games. How do you help people determine value on games?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of things that go into the value um, of a game. And the first off thing that comes to my mind is the theme of the game, right? So you're talking Lord of the Rings. We've talked about Pokemon. I think some of these themes are very sought after, or we've seen over the years themes that, this theme isn't so sought after, and that definitely impacts the price. And as we speak, all the hype is about Pokemon, and we were just talking before we jumped on of some of these prices that people are getting for some of these Pokemon LEs, just because of the demand and the theme of the game. So that's number one that comes to mind. I think if it's a used game, it's going to be the condition, 100% the condition. Is this like new, used game, or is it been routed? It's been in the bars, restaurants. It hasn't been taken very good care of, etc. That's a big one. And then the other big one that I often see is functionality. It might be in awesome shape, but maybe it doesn't power on due to the battery leaking acid onto the board or whatever that may be. And does the game power on? First off, does the game play? Does it just need a shop job, so it just needs wax and rubbers, or does it need a whole new board and whatever that may be? So there's a lot of different things that go into a value, but in my mind, I think the theme, the condition, and the functionality of a game is what determines the value of a game. So
For sure, and how sought after it is. So, because I know Adam's Family and Twilight Zone are highly priced games from what I see. You can't exactly, though they're an older game, they are games that are, I guess, highly sought after to be classics, right? And
absolutely,
those games, I don't know, I see them more than new in box most of the time when I see them priced out. Same with Indiana Jones or some of these other games.
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting how it works like that.
Yeah, no doubt on that. It again, I think those are also some big name themes, right? So I think some of those themes are nostalgic to some people. The other thing that does come to mind is also some of the bells and whistles that you see on some of these games that maybe other games don't have. So some of the features that certain games have versus other games that are very basic or lacking features. I think helps some of those games as well. So
Totally. Yeah, I mean, there are some things that you get in an Adams Family that you don't in some other games, right? Or like a
absolutely,
Whitewater and all these other really great classic
absolutely.
games. Once you've figured out like the value of your game, and now you've bought the game, what is the number one mistake people make while moving these games or like picking them up? Like,
Yeah, I think for me again, it's going to be not securing the ball. So during transport, those balls can break plastics. Um, they can definitely scuff up the play field and break different mechanisms throughout the game. So that's a big one. I've seen people not put anything between the head of the pinball machine and the play field. I always like to throw, whether that's cardboard, a blanket. Um, Other people have different methods, but something between there. So if it is in the back of a pickup truck or if it's in a box truck, whatever that may be, trailers, I've seen literally everything. That it does give the head a little bit of a cushion, and then there's no head bouncing off of the cabinet of the
oh yeah,
game, and then
totally.
exactly the play field, or sorry, the back glass possibly breaking, or even the glass on the actual play field. So that's another big one that I've seen as well. So
Do you usually pack stuff in a truck, or are you helping put people's games in vans, or are you dropping them off?
yeah,
What's the typical way you prefer to transfer a game?
that's a good question. So I think it's kind of funny. I've learned to have my own preferences of transporting, and I always suggest it to people. Other people with businesses or collectors may have their own preferences as well. So it's kind of funny to see everybody that is in the pinball world how they maneuver that, because everybody kind of seems to have their own tricks. But for me, I love, like I said, putting cardboard blankets between the head and the play field. Something else that works for me is shrink wrapping the machine.
Mm-hmm.
So the head is nice and tight, that there's going to be no bounce. And then also bringing shrink wrap around the pinball machine. So now you have it over and around. Just so whether that's any elements, I mean, we're dealing with snow and rain up here in Minnesota throughout the winter.
Oh yeah.
So protects it from elements. Also just from any wear. So if it's in a vehicle, if you're bringing it into the house and hitting a wall on accident or whatever that may be, that shrink wrap really helps protect the actual graphics and cabinet of the game. I've also seen people do blankets. Blankets work well.
Mm-hmm.
Tarps. Um,
Yeah, moving
Also,
blankets. I myself use a lot of blankets and ratchet
yes,
straps and stuff like that.
yes.
And
Ratchet straps
I
are
do
awesome.
like the wrap, but sometimes when I'm going on a quick job where I'm just kind
Yep,
of moving a game quickly and yeah. So what
100%.
when
Ratchet straps are key too. I like
yeah.
ratchet straps. They secure the head. So if you are tilting it on the butt of the pinball machine downstairs or something, that ratchet strap will hold that head in place. But they're also even nice if you're tossing it in the back of a vehicle or a pickup truck, that machine won't move around if you slam on the brakes or something like that. So
Yeah. So what are your non-negotiable tools then for when it comes to moving a game? So shrink wrap and blankets or
yeah,
cardboard.
shrink wrap, blankets, those are definitely on my list. What else? Obviously, you got to have a socket set or just an old school wrench to get the legs off. You can't forget
Hmm.
that. If you do, usually the homeowner or the business owner, wherever you're getting it from, will have those. I've definitely done that before, but you're going to need something to get the legs off for sure. Um,
Finding out if the keys exist that helps too, because
yes,
then
that's a big one.
taking the
Yeah,
balls out.
if the keys are not there, you're going to need a drill to drill out that lock, just so you can fold that head down.
Hmm.
And then something that, again, we talked about preferences a few minutes ago. Something that I've learned to be a preference of mine is just some simple sawhorses that you can get at your local hardware store or whatever. So I like to put the pinball machine up on those sawhorses, and then you take the legs off. I've seen people do it a million different ways, but that's what I prefer. Just to, again, you have the pinball machine up in the air, and then you simply take the legs off, and then you can either load it up with manpower or put it on your dolly or stair climber, which could be another key
Yeah.
tool for some people as well. So
What's like the heaviest game you've you feel like you've moved. I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
JJP games are pretty heavy, right? My multimorphic P3 is probably the heaviest game I've ever played.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I've moved so many different games that I don't have one exactly in mind, but every time that I move a wide body, man, those things are crazy heavy.
Oh
So
yeah,
the wide bodies are just so dang heavy. So,
yeah,
and even just tough to get through doors and all those things. So I don't have a specific one in mind, but wide bodies definitely
for
come to
sure.
mind
Got to
in
have that
general.
manpower to
Yeah.
lift these games,
Yes.
or woman power too. In
Absolutely.
my case, I I
Yes,
have the,
absolutely.
um.
Yep.
Have you had any like really crazy like so do you go out and buy games from people too to like sell and fix, or like you
All the
fix them up?
time, yeah. So finding those online or people coming to me. And yeah, we're in all sorts of situations, as you've probably seen, and the listeners and viewers have probably seen. I mean, anywhere from $1 million homes to the dustiest basements you can imagine.
Yeah,
Old 100-year-old homes with the steep, skinny stairways, low ceilings. So I think you talk about tricky situations to remove, and I think again those we're in the Twin Cities here in Minnesota, so all the older homes like in Minneapolis, St. Paul, you know, built in the early 1900s with those low basements, the skinny steep stairways. We've had to literally slide pinball machines upstairs before because there was no other way to do it, and I'll never forget those. And my back was hurting and all the things, but yeah, I think the
yeah.
sketchiest, weirdest ways we've removed is probably legit sliding pinball machines on the bottom of them with no legs up stairways with one guy pulling them up because there was just no other way to do it. So
Uh,
always a way. If they got it down there, there's a way to get it out, but sometimes you question why the heck they got them down there. So
how did it even get down there? Yeah,
exactly.
me pinball and stairs are like my least favorite. They don't work really well in my opinion. But
No,
sometimes, if you have stairs and you want pinball, you gotta
you
you
got to
gotta
make
work
it.
around it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's one thing that someone wants a pinball or someone's selling a pinball, you gotta figure it out. So
yeah,
I think that's if you're a one man show or one woman show, I should say, and there's no other help manpower wise, those stair climbers that they sell, so many different places are selling those these days, are so nice, and I've seen so many people use those where you just all it takes is one person and
oh
you
yeah,
take it right up the
escaleras.
stairs. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
super nice. So
yeah. But if you don't
stair
have
climbers
them,
there.
make sure when you buy pinball machines, you have a friend, right? Because
Absolutely, you're gonna need some
otherwise,
manpower for sure. So
yeah, otherwise it gets tough. Have you ever? I've been to a show one time where, so talking about, uh, it wasn't sketchy or anything. I feel so bad with transport. I had seen someone drop the head. They forgot to ratchet on the head of a game when
yeah,
they folded it up, and then they tipped it over, and the head just went and just just completely
yep,
busted. And I felt so bad because I know that they just bought that machine. I was at a show, everyone's leaving, taking their games home, and this person
yeah.
just bought this new pin, and they forgot to strap the head on, and it just breaks. It's so heartbreaking. I mean, it's fixable, but yeah,
Yes, very expensive mistake.
yeah,
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, that's the thing. There's so many different things that you've got to make sure when you're transporting these, or even repairing them, moving them around, that you got to make sure is locked in, secure. Otherwise, these parts or back glasses or heads, whatever it may be, they're expensive. They're not
yeah.
cheap. So
Do you have
I
like a
have learned.
checklist?
I I've seen a lot of people use a checklist, and quite frankly, should have my own checklist. I think just based off of experience now, I kind of know how to go through it from start to finish and make sure that it is secure before transporting. But I've definitely made mistakes along the way where you nick up a game because you tried taking a shortcut, or I broke a back glass once because it wasn't locked in. That's a
Oh,
$300 mistake on that machine.
yeah,
So you gotta. I think what I've learned is just take a deep breath, take your time, and just go about it logically. Otherwise, again, you make one mistake that could be a really expensive mistake with these games. So
Yeah, with moving pinball machines in and around. Yeah. I definitely wish I made a checklist for the last time I moved a game around. I forgot the keys. Don't remember where I placed the keys, so
yeah,
we had to bust in that machine, break the lock. So because the keys were
happens to
missing.
me way too often, and just
Yeah.
way too many keys. And yeah, I try to always keep the keys. I like just keeping them right in the front door, and then the back glass back box keys in the coin door,
Hmm.
per usual, where you often will find the back glass keys. So yeah, kind of a little trick there. That's nice.
Yeah, but that they have that, the extra ones. So, we mentioned a bit earlier, or like you had mentioned a bit earlier, shopped out. Do you want to explain what a shopped out game is to people that might not know what that means?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, especially for starters and beginners in pinball machines. I had no idea what that meant when people were talking about that when I first got into the industry. I think that it's a little subjective. Everybody's shopped out might be a little bit different, but I think in a nutshell, shopped out means that machines have been cleaned in service, which usually typically is a deep playfield cleaning, new rubbers, light bulbs, or possibly LED lights installed in the game. Mechanisms have been rebuilt or adjusted, and everything has been tested and is ready to be played. So, in a nutshell, just everything throughout the machine has been gone through and is 100% working as it should be. There's no shortcuts. There's nothing that does not work as it should be. So, is that kind of what you envision as shopped out as well, or do you have
Yeah,
any other?
I'd say like a shopped out game to me is like fully working and it's been cleaned. And yeah, all the light bulbs should be on because if you are talking about like an older game, yeah, sometimes bulbs go out, but a lot of the newer games, those lights last for a really long time. And if they are out, there might be something wrong with the board, right? So,
Exactly.
um, but
Yeah.
that's from games that are past like what time? You have probably any of the newer games with like a LCD screen, right? Should
Yeah.
be
So,
clear
all
from
those
them.
newer Stearns and games, like, you're usually not having to replace those bulbs, like you said, but oftentimes when we're doing, games all the way back to EMs through 80s, 90s, 2000s. That's
Mhm.
when, we do a lot of LED replacements, or even if you're going to choose the old school yellow lights in them, a lot of those bulbs are often out when you shop the game out. So,
Is that mostly you? So for your business, do you do a lot of shopping out, or do you have an assistant and someone that does it, or do you like to do it because it's maybe like
yeah,
therapeutic in a
good
way?
question. I am more so, I love to buy, sell, connect with the customers, help kind of navigate what that customer is wanting, whether that's a new pinball machine, a service, a transportation. So I like working with the customer on that aspect. As far as technician stuff, I do have multiple technicians that help me out with whether that's in-house calls or just in the shop. Otherwise, if I was doing all the work, I wouldn't be able to keep up with all
Yeah.
the requests and needs of all the customers. So, um, yeah, in that aspect, it's more so others kind of assisting me, but I do like to, be hands on with picking games up, delivering games, transporting games, and just so I can have a kind of a presence with the customer and like actually be involved somewhat and not just have others doing that work for me. So,
Yeah, you get a chance to like talk to them one on one and understand like what their needs are, right? And like where it's
exactly.
going, and they have
Exactly. Build
you as
that
the face.
relationship. But
Totally. No,
yeah,
I get that too from when I used to shoot a lot of events and things, and so it was something I really liked doing too. It was like talking to the people I directly made the deal with and being like, "Hey, what are we doing here?" And it helps just put face to a business, right? So,
exactly. Yep, grow those relationships for the future. And I'm a people person, so just really listening to the customers on what they need and delivering that service and product, and it's a win-win for everybody then. So,
yeah. So when it comes to now, I guess we can segue into like fixing games, right? What are some like hidden costs of pinball that people like overlook? Like now you've bought your new machine, you've brought it home. What what else can you expect from this game?
That's a good question. I think it's all depends on like what machine did you buy.
Mhm.
So are you buying a brand new in box Pokemon that's going to be coming out here in 2026, or are you buying an EM from the 70s, or a solid state game from the 80s or 90s or early 2000s? That such a subjective question. So I think I'm going to more so stick to the used games, just because I don't see a ton of hidden costs for the new inbox games, at least in the near future. Maybe 10 years down the road, that might be a little bit different. But
Yeah.
I'll stick with the used machines, and that's just really maintenance. I think there's so many people that are either interested in buying, or they're looking to buy, or maybe they just bought and they did buy a used machine, and it's like, well, within the first 6 months, I've had a flipper go out, maybe a board went bad or whatever that may be. And it's like, you know, that is part of buying a used pinball machine. I often compare these machines to vehicles, and just,
Mhm.
the older the vehicle, the more use it's had, probably the more upkeep and maintenance that's going to need when you do purchase that, or when you do start using that machine or vehicle um, in this matter. So I think it's really the maintenance, and just knowing that, hey, just because I'm buying a shopped out pinball machine doesn't mean that this thing's going to last 20 years. Now, I definitely always hear stories of like, hey, I haven't had to do a whole lot to this machine in the last 10 to 15 years. And that's awesome. But I always tell people to expect to do some sort of maintenance um, moving forward, whether that's hopefully not within this next 6 months, but maybe the next few years. And that also depends on how much use that machine is getting as well. So.
Totally. Yeah. No, this is awesome, man. Thank you so much for like being able to dive in. So we talked a little bit about like what it's like to uh choose buying a new game, transporting one, maintenance, looking into that. What do you feel like with all of this is one of the biggest mistakes you see first time buyers make most of the time?
Um, I think the biggest mistake that I see people buying is just buying just strictly on a theme, or like even the hype of a game, and not actually playing it or studying the gameplay. Um, I often tell people to either A, come play the game, or go play it out on a route somewhere. There's machines everywhere in all these breweries, bars, restaurants, or just simply looking at these YouTube videos that, from tournaments, or people, owners that have that machine, and upload their gameplay. So you can truly see what that game offers, gameplay wise, feature wise, etc. So again, I think buying just based on a theme or the hype of a machine is the biggest mistake that I see, instead of people actually studying kind of the gameplay and looking at it on YouTube, or even just going to play the game for themselves. Because you can tell from experience in the first 5 to 10 minutes if people are interested in the gameplay of a game or not. So just because the graphics and the theme look super cool, the game might not be appealing to that owner, or that maybe that homeowner's family, or whoever is going to be using the game. So
Oh, for sure. So you think for like not even picking up a theme, because I guess now like you're gonna have some people pick up Pokemon because they love Pokemon, um, and oh I guess I might differ with you on this opinion you have here for a big mistake for a first time buyer. I guess for me, like I think when it comes to first time buyer mistakes I see is like yeah maybe people not buying like paying overpaying for a game because they didn't realize like someone trying to pay $40,000 for an LE of some sort, depending on which one it is, could be a really big mistake.
yeah, and I totally see what you're saying too, and I actually don't even disagree with that. I really think it's every buyer and situation is different. So
Mhm.
some people buying, let's just stick with the Pokemon as that's kind of what's hot right now. Like
Yeah.
that's definitely applies to this situation where people are definitely going to be buying Pokemon, some people just for the theme. I'm more so talking on maybe like that first time pinball buyer or a family where they bought it because the graphics look super cool or whatever, and then they get it home, and then the gameplay is just not exactly what they were looking for. It's not enough features, or maybe it's too many features. So I think it really just does depend on the buyer, the situation in the game, really. So I can see both sides, but from what I've seen is maybe someone just casually thinks a game looks super cool. They buy it and they're like, you know what, this wasn't actually what we're looking for. So
Totally. Yeah, I have people ask me about games all the time. And I think at the end of the day, I think when you are buying a machine, you should like playing it. And whether or not someone else likes playing it or not, that's on them. Like I like playing some games that other people don't like playing. And it all depends on what you want. Someone was like, "Oh, I have the option to buy this game or this game. Which one should I buy?" And they're asking my opinion, and I'm just kind of like, well, I don't really care for either of the two games that you're going to purchase. So it
yeah,
really should be what you want. But I also feel like what's really kind of nice in the pinball world too is that if you end up not liking your game, you are able to sell it, right? Like it's not the end
100%.
of the world to buy a game and then trade it, sell it. I know maybe if you're interested in buying games, people buy a game, they can sell it to you, or they make it as a listing, and eventually you find it.
100%.
So
Like you said, the biggest thing there is just making sure that you know the market value and that you're not completely overpaying unless that's what you want to do for that specific game. So that would be another mistake. And that's the other tricky thing when you start getting into buying and selling is just making sure that you're not overpaying, and if you are overpaying that you're okay with it, etc. So
yeah, I guess I typically check in with my community and the people around me about prices for games now whenever I'm like interested in buying something. But I also go to Pinside. Would you recommend Pinside for the
yeah,
market?
yeah, absolutely love Pinside. I think Pinside is my number one resource. I love Pinside. I just love that it shows, you know, low end, high end, the median range. It shows at current ads, archived ads. Um, it shows all the features of the game. So Pinside is an absolute great resource for, whether it's a collector all the way down to a first time pinball buyer. I think it does have a very um, real price range and, a good market value. I think Pinside is really what helps set the pinball pricing to this day in the pinball world. So I think most people, whether that's operators, businesses like myself, homeowners, really look at Pinside to help determine the value. Now you got to be able to navigate Pinside where sometimes the ranges on there navigate quite a bit. And first time pinball sellers or buyers, whatever that may be, don't understand those ranges. So sometimes people will be asking for thousands of dollars more than what their game's actually worth. So you got to be able to navigate that and find comparable prices and understand why your game's either on the low end, the medium end, or maybe your game is on the high end because it's in great shape and it
Yeah.
fires right up and plays. So it is a great resource, though.
Yeah, no, I would say that's definitely where I go to for prices, and I look at that, and then I ask my community. I'm like, okay, so this game I'm interested in, I see it selling for this much. Do you think that's too much? Because I think that was definitely one of my. I think I wouldn't say it was a complete mistake. I would say I maybe slightly overpaid, but at the end of the day too, I was really happy to purchase the game when I did. And there was a game that I purchased that later I saw was listed lower on Pinside because I didn't really know that it existed. And yeah, I'll be sure to link I'll be sure to link Pinside below. I really only go for the market and to look at like games and their facts. There are like other parts of Pinside I typically just like avoid just because of all the drama that I hear.
Yeah,
I
I
do
agree
like
with
reading
you.
some of the stories. When I first started in pinball, I put some stories out on Pinside. Maybe I can share them one day with everybody. But yeah, at the end of the day, what do you feel like makes this hobby worth it? What is the thing that keeps drawing you back to pinball that
I
makes you
think,
want to stay here?
yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I'm going to go back to, again, just the people. I'm a people person. So at the end of the day, everybody listening and involved in pinball loves playing pinball. I think the community that, pinball brings together, whether that's, me in Minnesota, you out in California, this is a great example, but even just around the world. I know we were talking earlier that you've connected with people in other countries across way across the seas. So um, I think the people that I get to do stuff like this with, such as yourself, and just connect with you and out in the other side of the country, but also even just the people here that I work daily with in Minnesota and throughout the Midwest often, um, and really getting to know those people, build relationships with those people, and um, as as far as I've been able to, make great friends throughout the community and people that I hang out with, and you know, even socialize with outside of the world of pinball. So I think, in a nutshell, just the people and the community that pinball brings across, whether that's the state, the country, or even the world. So
Yeah, no, the community in pinball has literally changed my life. So I wouldn't be where I am right now without this community. So I
yeah,
really appreciate you reaching out and that we got a chance to connect and kind of share some stories, hopefully some good insight for people that are new into pinball, and maybe good insight for people that already have been in the hobby. And well, thank you so much, Andrew, for joining me and talking with me about this thing that we love. So,
absolutely.
yeah. Do
Thanks so
you
much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I look forward to continuing to watch your journey, and hope to meet you in person here at one of the shows in the
Oh
near
yeah,
future. So it'd be
def
awesome.
definitely. Yeah, I would love to meet you in person as well. And is there anything you want to plug though for your business before we sign off?
Yeah. Again, for those people in the Midwest, I would love to be a resource. Um, whether that's on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, even my website has my cell phone number on there. So you can visit my website, ppamn.com. Would love to connect with any of you guys. And also, we'll have a book coming out in the near future about some of this stuff that we talked about today, too. So make sure to check that out here, hopefully later in 2026. So
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on that. I'm looking
thank
forward
you.
to it. Yeah, be sure to let me know when it happens. I'll be sure to put his website in the link below, you guys, so if you want to check it out, and some of your other social plugs. But yeah, thank you so much, Andrew, for joining me today on this. And yeah, it was great having you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.